Did Yandy Smith choose to divorce Mendeecees? And if so, is the true cause of it Tamar Braxton's recent court battle? Reports that Tamar and Mendeecees were embroiled in a significant legal dispute and that Yandy supposedly took the awful choice to dissolve her marriage in the midst of all. Fans are stunned. Rumors abound in tabloids, and nobody seems to be aware of the location of the real truth. Did he ship your uterus, or did Yandy reach her breaking point? What are you doing with the, are you messing with me? I believe that I am a yar man. Did Mendeecees' reputation be totally ruined by Tamar's accusations? The most important issue of all is whether we are seeing a real-life sorrow that is even more honest than reality TV, or whether this is simply another ploy. There seems to be division in the industry. In general, Yandy's devoted followers and Tamar's supporters are at odds on social media, each fervently defending their choices. The enigma is further compounded by the fact that neither Yandy nor Tamar have issued an official statement. Everybody has the same question. Is one of the most talked about reality TV couples coming to an end? Or is it just what it looks like? What do you mean when it doesn't appear that way? Your uterus was shaken. Man, you're playing with me. I'm mudding up because of you. Go play games with the start of a larger controversy that will explode out. I'm not that kind of... The atmosphere in romantic and hip-hop communities has radically changed. What seemed to be a close-knit community of influential wives and celebrities has now become a battlefield of accusations, heartache, and treachery. In the middle of it all is Yandy Smith, a lady who was long regarded as Mendeecees Harris's pillar of devotion and strength. For an entirely other cause, her name is presently in the headlines. However, there are rumors that she filed for divorce after her husband and Tamar Braxton's dramatic court battle. It all began with allegations that Tamar had sued Mendeecees for allegedly behaving inappropriately at what was meant to be a business meeting. Mendeecees has always presented himself as a devoted spouse and father who is working to overcome his difficult background. Many were taken aback. Because of this, no one was ready for the uproar over Tamar's name. Tamar was upset and sobbing, according to those close to her. According to reports, she informed acquaintances that the Mendeecees had humiliated and assaulted her. However, as usual, layers of contradicting accounts, missing information, and internet conjecture seem to be hiding the truth. According to reports, Yandy got the news while getting ready for a brand event at her Atlanta home. According to reports, she learned about it via a friend who saw the story becoming viral online before she could even comprehend what was happening. According to an insider, the situation was chaotic, with Yandy pacing in shock as her phone continued to vibrate with notifications. At first, she didn't reply, thinking it was simply another online hoax that would go away. However, when more media outlets began, the scenario became unavoidable since legal papers were mentioned in the coverage. According to Yandy's friends, she tried contacting Mendeecees right away, but he didn't respond. Hours it took him a while to answer her call, and by then the harm had already been done. According to a person close to the couple, there was a lot of tension and tears throughout their chat. What did you do? And what were your words to her? Were allegedly the questions Yandy requested answers to. Mendeecees refuted all of this, claiming that the claims were overstated and that Tamar was distorting the facts. However, Yandy was not persuaded, because she was aware that a controversy of this magnitude had dominated the internet. The chaos often obscured the truth. Celebrities began to comment as well. Tamar apparently received advice to stay strong from some of her closest pals. Others cautioned that publicizing such accusations may exacerbate the situation. Fans' divergent views on social media prompted a quick response from the entertainment sector. Some, on the other hand, backed Mendeecees and said that the entire thing was just another attempt by the media to discredit black families in the entertainment industry. Others applauded Tamar for coming out and offered support. Hashtags like Sour Stand with Tomorrow bombed Team Yandy and Protect Mendeecees were used since the subject had become so contentious. Yandy, who had supported the Mendeecees through prison time, financial hardships, and public controversies, was abruptly forced to reconsider all of her marriage-related views. Insiders claim that she slept very little for days. mentally going over previous conversations in an effort to find any hints she may have overlooked. Was there ever a tight connection between Mendeecees and Tamar? Had anything occurred on site or at an event that she didn't know about? Every question that remained unanswered seemed like a fresh injury. In a few ambiguous social media postings, Mendeecees attempted to manage the matter quietly by talking about the truth coming to light and being rooted in religion, which further fueled speculations. Fans started paying close attention to every word, attempting to determine if he was defending himself or admitting guilt. Conversely, Tamar remained mostly quiet with the exception of a few cryptic tweets that suggested emotional pain and disappointment, such as, "Some people you trust will turn your peace into your trauma." Her fans were frantically attempting to decipher who she was talking to. 2. When court records that had been leaked started to circulate online, the strain reached a breaking point. According to blogs, Tamar had filed a legal case. Despite the absence of official proof, there was a complaint citing unwelcome approaches and upsetting interactions with Mendeecees. The mere prospect of appearing in court was enough to put an end to any aspirations for privacy, despite the lack of concrete evidence. When the legal issue was raised, Yandy's decision became evident. She was also unable to defend the Mendeecees because of how openly everything was being played out. According to some who were close to the marriage, Yandy and the Mendeecees had a heated disagreement at home. Yandy asked him bluntly, "What happens to me if I stick by you now and it turns out you're lying? What happens to what we have built?" Yandy had had enough of Mendeecees trying to convince her that he was innocent and that the truth will come to light. She seemed devastated, as if she had lost both her marriage and her trust in the person she believed to be her closest confidant. By the end of that week, many media sites started claiming that Yandy and her legal team had spoken about divorce. Her representatives didn't confirm it right away, but people close told her that the decision took years to make rather than being made in a hurry. To keep the marriage together for so long, she had endured many trials. However, this one had a unique feel. This went beyond rumors. It was about being humiliated in public and experiencing a level of betrayal from which she would never completely recover. As the days went by, the controversy only intensified. It was a topic that reporters covering entertainment, news shows, and gossip websites couldn't stop discussing. Yandy was portrayed by some chastised her for divorcing her spouse too soon, while others saw her as a strong woman who was at last breaking free from a cruel cycle. However, many people who knew her well said that behind the headlines, she was tired of being the one to make things right, of pretending that the public view didn't hurt, and of trying to keep her family together while everyone else watched it come apart. In spite of all the commotion, Tamar stayed oddly silent, concentrating instead on advertising her new endeavors. Her unwillingness to engage in theater was seen by some as a sign of maturity, and by others as a sign of regret. Nevertheless, the harm had been done. Tamar Mendeecees and Yandy had one of the most discussed entertainment-related subjects, but nobody was sure how it would turn out. What had seemed to be distinct lives had united to create a complicated scandal that was now unavoidable. The consequences of the controversy only became worse as the weeks passed. There were fresh whispers, fresh emotions, and fresh emotional injuries. Everyone felt free to take a side in the internet dispute, which had become a battlefield of viewpoints. Tamar's supporters were vehemently defending her, sharing quotes from her past discussions about pain and betrayal, and asserting that they had always thought she was a strong self-advocate. But the three of them were obviously at odds with one another, and things were far worse behind closed doors than anybody had imagined. But a few of Mendeecees and Yandy's supporters called the whole episode media manipulation, and disputed that he was capable of doing so. Insiders said Mendeecees was become more and more keen to steer the conversation. He began contacting their common acquaintances in an attempt to persuade them to publicly support him and attest to his good character. A few did, claiming that Tamar's comments were misunderstood and did not accurately reflect the guy they knew. However, others choose to remain silent in order to avoid being entangled in a legal and emotional quagmire. As said by a Mendeecees even made an attempt to have a direct conversation with Tamar in an attempt to resolve the matter. according to a person acquainted with the circumstances. However, she wouldn't talk to him without her lawyer there. That choice made logical, but it only encouraged rumors that there was more to the narrative than what was being revealed. Meanwhile, Yandy had distanced himself from the spotlight. Her abrupt silence spoke a lot for a woman who is renowned for being self-assured and commanding. She stopped sharing pictures of her family online, canceled her planned public engagements, and stayed away from any interviews. A subdued sadness had taken the place of her customary cheerfulness, and everybody who saw her noted that she seemed aloof. According to one acquaintance, Yandy was grieving her marriage and treating it as if it were a loss she could still feel, but could no longer identify with. She had stood up for Mendeecees for years when others doubted his commitment. However, that same allegiance suddenly seemed burdensome. When Tamar arrived at a charity function and was questioned on television about whether she had talked to Yandy since the news emerged, the tension reached yet another high. When she paused, took a big breath, and simply whispered, "I pray for her," the audience became quiet for a while, uncertain of how to react. Is it weariness from all the public attention, pity, or a subtle message? Regardless, her remarks brought the internet conversation back to life. Supporters saw it as evidence that Tamar had made an effort to maintain harmony, but was unable. At around the same time, a shocking new rumor started making the rounds on social media. Alleged letters from months ago between Mendeecees and Tamar. It was explosive, even though the legitimacy of the contents was never verified. While some thought the contacts were fake and potentially meant to cause drama, others said they were sincere and marked the beginning of a relationship that ultimately spiraled out of control. They hinted to talks that at first seemed friendly, but soon got more personal, with praises and late-night check-ins that many believed went beyond what was proper for a married guy. Whatever the truth of the messages that were released, they seriously harmed Mendeecees' image and made it almost hard for him to win back the public's favor. According to reports, Wendy's friends reminded her that she didn't owe anybody an explanation and urged her to maintain her composure while concentrating on her kids. But the idea of being portrayed as the shattered wife was too much for Yandy, who was always suspicious. Her goal was to regain control over her own life, not the story or even Mendeecees. As a consequence, she started secretly collaborating with her legal team, making a public declaration and investigating her divorce options. She didn't want a difficult divorce or any public arguments, according to insiders. All she wanted was tranquility. The media prevented her from moving on, despite her best efforts. Following her around, paparazzi snapped photos of her leaving her attorney's office. The images went viral, with titles such as "Divorce Papers in Motion" and "Yandy Finally Done." Mendeecees was starting to accept the reality of his situation. He used to be one of the most respected men in the hip-hop and romance scenes, but he was now the subject of ongoing controversy. His friends described him as reclusive, and I evaluate him as well as Tamara or Yandy. Regardless of the exact facts, he knew that perception had already become reality. He began avoiding events, declining interviews, and keeping out of sight. However, there were ongoing accusations that he was trying to repair his